Hello and welcome back to Skypothesis. We are dedicated to breathing new life into Skyrim by exploring unique characters and the game's hidden mechanics to let you feel the magic of Skyrim again. This week, we are excited to present the Scourge of Blackrose, an An-Xileel extremist and master of traps who tends to take things a bit too far with intricate inventions and over-the-top explosives. She utilizes exploding crossbow bolts, spider scrolls, the webs of her pet spider, and deadly poisons to ensnare and terrify her foes. We even use a fascinating enchanting exploit to give her an energy blade that we'll explain later in this video. The last time we featured spider scrolls in a build was nearly 5 years ago, so we thought it high time to give them another spot in the limelight. This time with unique special moves and detailed tricks to unlock some of the most fun combat we've ever had in the game. So, without further ado, let's jump into the backstory of the Scourge of Blackrose. In the deep swamps of Argonia, now ruled by the mysterious and militant An-Xileel in the 4th era, there lived an Argonian with a mind as sharp as her volatile inventions. Her name became feared across the land after her extremist ideals clashed not only with foreign powers, but with her own kin. The An-Xileel rose to power during the Oblivion Crisis, uniting Argonia's tribes to repel the invading Daedra, and launching a bold counterattack that pushed deep into the Deadlands. Their victory cemented their control over Argonia, breaking free the imperial rule. But with time, their iron grip on the region began to soften, at least in her eyes. This young bomb maker saw weakness in the An-Xileel's compromises with the outside world. The presence of the East Empire Trading Company represented an affront to her vision of a free and untouchable Argonia. Fueled by anger and a fanatical belief in the need to return to isolationist strength, she used her unparalleled skill to craft small but terrifyingly effective bombs, often imbuing live insects as carriers fused with magic and refined malachite. Her most infamous act came when she orchestrated the bombing of an East Empire Trading Company outpost, a brutal strike meant to send a message to An-Xileel and their foreign allies. Rather than sparking an uprising, this act led to her swift capture by the An-Xileel. The organism, their body of governance, sought to disassociate from her extremism and maintain their tenuous international relations. She was thrown into Blackrose prison, a dark fortress in the deep swamps, infamous for housing Argonia's most dangerous criminals. But the swamps breed resilience. Even within the iron grasp of Blackrose, her restless mind began devising an escape. Using a stolen, flawless amethyst and crude tools smuggled past guards, she imbued a spider she captured on the ceiling with an electrified malachite core to turn it into a living bomb. On the stormy night of her plan, the device discharged its payload against the prison walls, creating a breach that unleashed the largest prison break in Blackrose history, and gave her the chance to slip away. She earned the title, Scourge of Blackrose. Now an outlaw, not only in the Empire, but among her own people, she fled to Skyrim, the farthest land from Argonia she could imagine. The horrors of Blackrose weighed heavy on her and drove her mad. She had to get as far away as possible. The cold northern frontier promised not safety, but obscurity, a chance to evade those who sought her life. She wanted a fresh start, free to pursue her ideals and tinker and create. But unfortunately, border crossings are no friend to fugitives, and it wasn't long before she found herself in the wrong place at the wrong time in a certain mountain pass. After her narrow escape from the chaos of Helgen, the Scourge of Blackrose finds herself adrift in a land that was frozen, hostile, and vast. The frozen wilds of Skyrim, with their harsh winds and unforgiving terrain, were unlike the swamps of Argonia. Yet their unyielding wilderness suited her need for isolation. Trust was not a currency she dealt in. Her entire existence had been shaped by betrayal. From the An-Xileel's rejection to her horrifying imprisonment in Blackrose, visions of her incarceration plagued her. For a long time, she remained a shadow in the forest, scavenging for food, crafting makeshift shelters, and tinkering with what few resources she could find to stay alive. Despite her survival, loneliness and paranoia gnawed at her resolve. The land of Skyrim was an unfamiliar battlefield, and the enemies here, whether men, beast, or law, did not care for her past or her beliefs. After surviving on her own and avoiding major settlements, she hears rumors of the Dawnguard recruiting at Fort Dawnguard. She initially dismissed them as another cult-like faction wasting their strength on imaginary enemies. But Skyrim's roads are treacherous, and the escalating vampire attacks soon made it clear that traveling alone offered only a slim chance of survival. Reluctantly, she sought out the Dawnguard, not out of loyalty to their cause, but because they represented one of the few groups willing to provide one with gear, food, and a warm fire, without asking too many questions about someone's past. When she arrived, she presented herself as an inventor and tinkerer for hire, rather than an idealist. She claimed an interest in their technology, particularly their crossbow. While the Dawnguard were initially wary of her, they recognized her potential. An Argonian with a knack for bombs might be exactly the kind of weapon they needed against their blood-sucking enemies. As she worked with the Dawnguard, her skills found a natural home. Experimenting with their exploding bolt designs, she improved them working with Sorin. In return, she found a semblance of stability within their ranks. Though she still harbored deep skepticism toward authority, the Dawnguard offered her the closest thing to a purpose she'd had since fleeing Argonia. Their shared goal of eliminating the vampire threat created a sense of kinship she hadn't expected, even as she remained an outlier among them. After settling into life at Fort Dawnguard, the Scourge of Blackrose begins hearing whispers of legends from this Nordic land. Her work with explosive bolts and tinkering with alchemy and technology had been a practical escape from her past, but something new was calling to her. The rumors that swept through the Dawnguard camp about the Dragonborn, the one prophesied to end dragons' resurgence, fascinated her. She never expected it would happen to her. It began with whispers, strange voices calling her in her sleep, reminding her of her promise to Ralof, that strange and kind Nord from Helgen, to warn the Jarl of Dragons. Though he certainly knew about the attack by now, the whispers told her to keep her promise. Before learning basic social skills among the Dawnguard, standing before the Jarl of Whiterun would have terrified her. But she was growing, and realizing that she could carve a life for herself here by plying her trade for Jarls and guilds who could use her unique skill set. Slaying her first dragon and finding out she was Dragonborn was an absolute shock. The last thing she expected was for Skyrim to turn her into something greater than even she had imagined. Her pursuit on the main quest isn't about heroism or redemption, it's about survival. More often than not, she is terrified. The memories of Blackrose, the isolation, the terror of being confined and powerless, haunts her like a shadow. The An-Xileel tried to lock her away, to bury her potential. That trauma runs deep, and she swears she will never again be at the mercy of anyone or anything. When the Greybeards teach her of her potential power, it becomes her lifeline. This is a path that leads to strength, to invulnerability. If she can tap into the power of the dragons, she will never have to cower in fear again. And with every word of power she unlocks, the memories of her captivity are buried deeper. She will make herself unbreakable. Like many Argonians, she revered Sithis as a child, and those beliefs resurfaced as she seeks strength and control. Sithis, once an abstract god of death, now feels very real, a force that offers freedom. In his void, there are no chains or walls. They answer only to chaos and Sithis, rejecting the world's laws and morality. Drawn by the promise of honing her craft and embracing the free void, she joins them. The Scourge of Blackrose is the epitome of chaotic neutral. Driven by a thirst for power and freedom, she answers to no one, rejecting any form of control, and her actions are guided solely by survival. Whether slaying dragons or joining the Dark Brotherhood, she does what benefits her, with no concern for morality, only self-interest and the drive to never be shackled again. With this perspective, after gaining confidence from the Dawnguard and power from the main quest, joining the college and Thieves Guild are definitely on the table. At the college, she can study arcane skills, and the Thieves Guild can provide her with coin and fences to sell her poisonous concoctions to. Moving on to general gameplay. Her gameplay loop involves setting traps to catch opponents unaware, then blowing them up with various spider scrolls we roleplay as self-crafted critter bombs. Her light beam shiv and glass crossbow are used primarily for removing targets you are not feasibly able to trap. There are multiple types of spiders the Scourge of Blackrose imbues. You can have up to 6 at a time under your command. Exploding spiders are dead spiders that act as a sort of rune, detonating upon impact with an enemy or spell. These are used for her primary traps. The jumping spiders have enhanced agility, letting them leap towards their targets once released. This variant excels in surprise attacks, and it's especially effective for taking down immediate threats or pursuers. The cloaked spiders are shrouded with elemental cloaks, and actually have a pretty decent health pool. They swarm enemies and damage them with their elemental effects and will stay with you until killed in combat. They are most useful for open combat when returning to the shadows is not an option. The Mind Control Spider is a spider that once triggered, latches onto its target, taking control of the victim's mind for a short period. This variant offers a sinister form of manipulation, turning enemies into temporary allies and turning the tide of battle into the Scourge's favor. It's ideal for sowing chaos within enemy ranks and controlling a foe who may otherwise pose a significant threat. Finally, the oil spider is a spider that leaves a trail of flammable oil when it is threatened. Once that oil comes in contact with fire, it catches ablaze, setting the surrounding area on fire and dealing substantial burn damage. The Scourge sends these spiders towards powerful enemies, then lights the oil with an exploding crossbow bolt of fire to make for a massive explosion. Her preferred method of setting off exploding spiders is by using the spell Mage Light. The Improved Emperor's Guide to Tamriel states, "Another legend of the dark swamps of Argonia concerns wisps. Imperial scouting parties stationed in Blackwood have numerous reports involving strange orbs of light that slowly meander the marshlands. We roleplay Mage Light to be these wisps, a form of Argonian magic known only to those with a deep connection to the swamps. It's super cool to see a chain reaction of these spiders detonate from a slow-moving wisp in the dark." Spider scrolls might just be the coolest consumable objects in the game, but they are very resource intensive, requiring precious gems and spider pods to craft. Unfortunately, the game only has one respawning spider pod that you can harvest, just south of Bloodskull Barrow near a shrine of Kinnereth. For this reason, we didn't feel the least bit bad for using the duping exploit to give ourselves more spider pods for crafting. The price is still high, as you need gems, but using this exploit makes crafting scrolls and using them in combat feel much better. There are lots of guides online for duping. We'll link one in the description. She makes her home in Winstead Manor, where she can have a greenhouse wing and fish hatchery for potion brewing. And using this secret backdoor entrance, she also spends a lot of time in White Ridge Barrow crafting spider scrolls. The only spell she really uses is Mage Light, and for shouts she will primarily use Become Ethereal, Throw Voice, Dismay, and Fire Breath for igniting oil spiders. Moving on to alchemy. She can craft a variety of potions to help with dangerous situations, but for the purposes of the build video, we are going to focus on a handful. Poisons she learned from a fellow spider enthusiast she met in the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary. The first is Venom of Funnelweb, which is a potion of damage, health, and paralysis. Your enemy is paralyzed as if caught in a metaphorical web. Next up is Venom of the Widow. This is a triple effect poison that applies Ravage health, damage health, and weakness to poison. Applying this one first to tougher enemies makes them much easier to finish off. Next, we have Venom of the Hobo. This is actually the most potent combination of damage health ingredients in the game. Use this poison to slow down fast approaching enemies. By the time they finally reach you, the fight will basically be won. Next is Venom of the Recluse. This venom slowly spreads, opening a wound like an infected spider bite, rotting away the flesh. Use this one in tandem with Frostbite Venom to stack even more damage over time. This is especially useful against dragons since they spend so much time out of reach. Amplify its effects by first applying Venom of the Widow. In addition to these deadly poisons, you'll want to make as many potions of invisibility as possible. These ingredients include using Nirnroot, Vampire Dust, Luna Mothwing, Ice Wraith Teeth, and Charis Eggs. Now let's discuss kitting out the character. The glass crossbow can be purchased from vendors but is a bit rare, so we used a basic steel crossbow until we could get our hands on it. She also picked up a shiv during her stint in Sidna Mine, and enchanted it with the unique FX enchantment from the Undying Ghost Sword. You can only obtain this sword by performing a specific exploit with the spell Conjure Undying Ghost, the Wabbajack, and a whole lot of tomfoolery. I Am a Cobra dubbed this fatal transmog exploit, and has an excellent video on the process that we will link in the description. With this enchant, the shiv turns into a lightsaber-like energy beam, which we imagine she tinkered in her workshop. She wears an armor combination that we call Insectoid Robes, made up of the Shellbug Helm, which you can craft after mining the Shellbug in the Forgotten Vale, the Runic Necromancer Robes, which can be found in the Ingvild Throne Room, the Gauntlets of the Old Gods, which increases archery damage by 20%, and the Falmer Hardened Boots, which curve upwards and add to the Alien Tinkerer aesthetic. For auxiliary gear, she will wear the Ring of Surroundings, which makes you 20% harder to detect, and the Locket of Saint Jib, which increases stamina and carry weight by 50 points each, letting you take more precise shots and carry more poisons and scrolls. You get the ring as a reward for the quest Clear-Headed, and the locket in the Soul Cairn. Since the Shellbug helmet and Falmer hardened armor take some time to obtain, we wore the Necromancer hood and shoes until then. We love the way the green, curious eyes of the Shellbug helm match the runes of her robe and the green of her glass crossbow. Moving on to stats and perk spread. We leveled the Scourge of Blackrose with an even spread in health and stamina. We are using the Serpent Stone, roleplayed as a poisonous bite, to paralyze and poison an enemy once per day. It's useful when you're overwhelmed and need to get out of a situation fast. And we are playing as an Argonian for the roleplay, water breathing, hissed skin, and base bonus to sneak. By the time you reach level 40, you'll want the following perks. In archery, take all 5 in Overdraw, Eagle Eye, both in Steady Hand, Power Shot, and Quick Shot. In Sneak, we will be perking the entire tree. In Alchemy, we will be taking all 5 in Alchemist, Concentrated Poison, Green Thumb, Snake Blood, and Purity. Finally, in Illusion, we will be taking Novice Illusion, Animage, Kindred Mage, all so that we can get Quiet Casting for Silent Shouts. Additional perks to seek out are first and foremost, Prowler's Prophet. This quest has a reputation of being time-consuming and difficult, but the only 3 hurdles are access to the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, the Archmage's Quarters, and Proud Spire Manor. The rest of them you can simply walk in and pick them up. Just keep a notepad out and you can knock them all out in 1 to 2 hours, maybe even faster if you're focused. The result is an absurd amount of precious gems in every chest, burial urn, and corpses. So many you'll easily be able to craft your bolts and spiders. This perk is an absolute must for this build to function. She'll also get Sindarian Serendipity for a chance to craft 2 potions instead of 1, and Seeker of Shadows for 10% improved alchemy. Alright, moving on to our favorite part of every build, the special moves. The first of these moves are specialty bombs that she crafts. First up is Wisp Bomb, a combination of an exploding spider and mage light. With this, the Scourge summons a silent, slow-moving wisp to detonate an exploding spider, potentially setting off a chain reaction. There are shock, fire, frost, and poison variants of this move, depending on which spider you select. Next up is Smoke Bomb, a combination of Become Ethereal, Shadow Warrior, then an invisibility potion. She uses this move when overwhelmed in combat. Shadow Warrior makes a smoky effect when activated, and causes enemies to momentarily lose track of you. Become Ethereal will make you invulnerable as you escape. Next we have Oil Bomb, which is a combination of an oil spider and an exploding crossbow bolt of fire. Oil spiders secrete oil when threatened, and when shot with a bolt of fire will erupt the entire area in bright flames, engulfing foes. Next we have Prey, which is a combination of Dismay, Quiet Casting, and Cloaked Spiders. Shout Dismay from the shadows to give your enemies an eerie sense of fear as up to 6 cloaked spiders emerge and start to terrorize them. Finally, we have Fly in a Web, which is a combination of Throw Voice and Arachnia's Web. Shout Throw Voice onto a web that Arachnia spins, and watch as an unsuspecting enemy steps right into your sticky trap. And with those special moves completed, we are ready to wrap up this build video. The Scourge of Blackrose was a difficult but rewarding playthrough with some of our favorite special moves ever. Setting traps and role-playing as an An-Xileel extremist was just way too fun. Let us know how your playthrough goes in our ever-growing Discord server, and check out our merch shop if you want to cop some Skypo swag. Shout out, as always, to Vinsvept for his amazing composition, The Rat King. Our videos seriously wouldn't be the same without his magic. We'll be back next month with another brand new build video. And of course, we'll post more recap shorts in between. Remember to like and subscribe to help us keep the magic of Skyrim alive. We'll see you next time, right here on Skypothesis.